Our next speaker is Rod Taylor. Rod is with the Christian Heritage Party. Rod is happily married to Elaine, his wife of 43 years, and they have 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren. Raised in a politically active family, Rod has long understood the importance of men and women standing up for what they believe, standing up for the innocent and the helpless, and using their freedom of speech to influence society for good. Having worked with his hands all his life, Rod understands the challenges faced by average working class people and the responsibility we all share to build a society based on justice, freedom, and personal initiative. Rod feels that unless we are willing to speak and make our voices heard, government may grow beyond its usefulness. Please welcome Rod Taylor, the Christian Heritage Party.
Well, good afternoon, pro-lifers, pro-family advocates, defenders of the faith, defenders of freedom, defenders of the preborn, defenders of the elderly and the infirm, defenders of the sanctity of human life. The past 4 years, I've been in Ottawa on this day, marching for life in our nation's capital, but I'm so glad to be here in Victoria with you this year in the capital of BC and joining with you in March for Life Victoria. On behalf of the National Board, members of the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, and the Provincial Board and members of the Christian Heritage Party of BC, I want to thank you, every one of you, for being here today, for showing up, for giving your time, for using your voice to make a difference for every preborn person. Every little person made in the image of God deserves your protection, your care, and your voice. For too long, the power brokers in this country, politicians, media moguls, business people, bureaucrats, appointed judges, and tenured professors, powerful people in the education and health industries and ministries have turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to the plight of the preborn, and now also to the elderly, the disabled, and the infirm. For too long, the schemes and calculations of political operatives have deemed the issue of life to be the third rail of politics, to be a topic untouchable by those who aspire to power. For too long, politicians and their political advisors have tried to avoid any honest discussion about the value of human life, about when human life begins, about the competing human rights of the preborn child and the woman who finds herself facing an unplanned pregnancy. For too long, thinking men and women, every one of whom was at one time a preborn person, have allowed the unthinking media narrative of unfettered choice to cloud the issues of life, to close the doors of discussion, and to sear the consciences of those who should know better. For too long, we in the pro-life movement have accepted a role as second-class citizens with no access to decision-making, as second-class voters with no clear choices on the ballot, as second-class educators with no influence on the young minds in our classroom, and as second-class taxpayers who grudgingly render to Caesar that which is God's, and who allow our hard-earned wages to pay for abortions and assisted suicides. For too long, we in the pro-life movement have allowed our words to be twisted in the press, mangled in the media, silenced in the classroom, derided in political circles, and discarded by an ill-informed public. Now is the time to change all that. Now is the time to put the protection of the preborn back on the ballot. Now is the time for politicians to find their courage and for pro-life citizens to find their collective voice. Every year in Canada, about 100,000 little ones are taken from us. You know, that's the equivalent of the population of one federal riding. That's one whole riding with no representation in Ottawa. That's the equivalent of 4,000 classrooms of children taken away from us every year, and 4,000 more teachers out of a job. Every preborn child deserves an advocate in the House of Commons, in the BC legislature, and in the legislatures of every province across this country. Every pro-life voter deserves a pro-life candidate to vote for. This day in Canada, I call on every one of you to determine that you will do everything in your power to ensure that every voter in every election in Canada has a pro-life candidate to vote for, and that every human being, pre-born or elderly, has an advocate in the halls of power. I stand with you. We stand with you. We promise that we will not abandon the pre-born. We will not abandon the vulnerable. We will not abandon those whom society has ignored and despised. Because each one is precious to God, each one is precious to us. Each one is made in the image of God, and each one is designed by God with a purpose and a destiny no person, no doctor, no politician has a right to destroy. So we encourage you to make a commitment here today that you will do your homework. You will make sure that this fall, in the federal election, you will have a candidate that you can vote for who will fearlessly stand for life. Help us raise the standard. Let the candidates know that if they're not going to use their voice to protect innocent human life from conception until natural death, they cannot have your vote. Tell them that Canadian soldiers died to give you the right to vote, and you're not going to waste it on any politician who will not stand for the protection of innocent human life. You can make a difference. We can make a difference. The lives of the preborn depend on you. In days to come, your children and your grandchildren will ask you what you did to protect the preborn. Let's live in such a way, let's talk in such a way, let's march in such a way, and let's vote in such a way that we can tell future generations, I did everything I could to protect the preborn. So the Bible says that if you give even 1 cup of cold water to someone who's thirsty, you will never lose your reward. How much more when you defend the very lives of the innocent? Your efforts will not go unnoticed. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Go the second mile. Pour yourselves out for the preborn. I want to thank you for being here today, standing for life, marching for life, and I hope to see some of your names on the ballot in October. I hope every one of you old enough to vote will be voting for life and being the voice of the voiceless, voting for those who cannot yet vote for themselves. God bless you all.